Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. If you're new here, consider subscribing. It really helps keep these stories coming. And while you're here, let me know in the comments where you're listening from. Now, sit back, relax, and let's get into the story. My name is Caleb Morgan, and if this recording makes it anywhere beyond the quiet of our camper's foam-lined walls, know that everything I'm about to say happened exactly as I lived it. My wife, Rena, and I were small vendors, the kind you might see at weekend markets selling hand-cut leather journals, birch bark ornaments, and little copper animals she bent with tiny pliers at a folding table. We hauled our stock in a converted camper van and ran the interstate like it was our narrow river. When the infection surged across the country, the same camper turned into our shelter, our pantry, our workshop, and our last line of defense. We are not heroes. We are two people who learned how to make quiet choices on loud roads. We learned the map of risk, the rhythm of exit numbers, and the way an empty shoulder can make your skin prickle even when the sun is bright. We learned which rest areas had water taps that could be coaxed into a trickle without setting off motion sensors, which truck stops had manual shutoff valves out back, and which lanes collected windblown leaves around the median in a way that hid things you did not want to step on. Our camper is a long wheelbase van built on a heavy-duty chassis. Before all of this, I had fitted 2 solar panels on the roof, each rated for 300 watts in perfect sun. A charge controller the size of a paperback novel trickled power into a 180 ampere-hour lithium iron phosphate battery bank strapped to the floor with metal brackets and lock nuts. A pure sine wave inverter delivered power to a compact hot plate, a small refrigerator, and the tiny pump that pulled water from a 25-gallon tank into a stainless sink. A roof vent with a quiet brushless motor exhausted heat, and in the corner near the slider door, a diesel-fed heater sat ready to sip from a 1-gallon tank during cold nights. I mention these details because survival was not the big dramatic act. It was 1,000 small decisions about volts, gallons, and calories. We set rules early. Drive at dawn, hide before dark, never stop near cities. We picked our miles carefully, moving like a shadow between the long bodies of abandoned semis. The first week, we used our phones for maps and radio streams. By the second week, we had switched to a paper atlas with routes marked in pencil, and I mounted a small magnetic compass to the dash in case cloud cover ruined our sense of direction. If this sounds old-fashioned, it is. But old-fashioned things kept working when newer ones stopped. When fuel stations went dry or locked their pumps, we siphoned from trucks. I kept a hand pump, clear tubing, and a bundle of one-way valves in a plastic crate. Freight tractors are tall, and sometimes it meant climbing a step rail, slipping the tube past the filler cap flap, and listening for that soft, hollow echo that says you have metal and then liquid beneath it. We never took more than we needed for the next day's travel and a reserve. Greed could get you noticed. Notice could get you surrounded. Each morning started at 5:30 in the morning. I brewed coffee in a steel kettle while Rena folded our bedding and secured cabinets with the elastic straps she had stitched. Our rifles stayed unloaded but within reach, actions open and chambers clear, with the magazines stored beside them. We kept one 9mm pistol in a locked pouch near the driver's seat. We carried these tools because the world had new kinds of danger, but I also knew the weight of noise. A single loud report could roll under an overpass and out across concrete fields like a bell calling everything within earshot. We avoided using them. We prepared so that we would not have to. We learned the signals of the infected. You notice them first by contrast. A person standing on a median where no one stands, or a figure in the grass ribbon between frontage road and freeway shoulder, swaying as if listening to a music that is not playing. In the early weeks, they moved more during daylight, drawn to any sound of engines, drawn to voices. By the second month, the pattern frayed. We saw them at all hours, in clusters where traffic had jammed, and in single forms miles from anything. We kept windows cracked no more than 2 fingers and never idled the van if we did not have to. Loneliness came slowly. It arrived like condensation inside double-pane windows, thin, almost invisible at first, and then one morning you notice the view is softer than it used to be. We spoke then about whether to seek a larger group. We used a citizens band radio mounted under the dash. Channel 19 stayed mostly silent, broken by static and the occasional exhausted voice asking for mile markers we did not recognize. Once, on a clear morning near the state line, a gravelly voice recited a list of county roads that were open and safe, and then it went quiet mid-word like a power cut. Rena turned the knob down until the dial light was a ghostly pinprick. That was the morning I realized silence can be heavier than noise. We built routines inside the camper to keep our heads clear. Every evening, Rena inventoried food: canned beans, rice in vacuum bags, jars of peanut butter, tins of fish, dried fruit, instant oats. We kept a separate bin for the little pleasures that make days feel like days: honey sticks, herbal tea, a few squares of dark chocolate wrapped in waxed paper. I tuned the diesel heater and cleaned the air intake filter every 3rd night. Once a week, I greased the sliding door track and checked the bolts that held our steel mesh over the rear windows. There was one rule we had not written down because it felt too much like admitting a new world. Do not open the door for what you are not ready to live with forever. It sounds harsh, but I had seen what happened when kindness collided with fear. We had stopped once to share water with a couple walking the shoulder with 2 grocery bags each. They were polite and grateful. We gave them protein bars and a small squeeze bottle of hand sanitizer that still smelled faintly like roses. We left feeling human. 2 days later, we saw a similar pair run at a delivery van, waving their arms, and when the driver opened the sliding door, 3 others rose from the grass ditch and moved with a speed that caught even the driver's reflexes off guard. It was a trick older than any of us, and seeing it on a bright afternoon made us colder. We navigated by landmarks. The big concrete water tower near the split where the interstate bent around the city. The row of wind turbines that stood in a field behind a way station like calm sentries. The overpass with graffiti of a blue heron, the feathers sprayed in careful layers. Real places anchored us. The atlas said we were crossing a wide county with more farms than neighborhoods. That felt safer, so long as the barns were not already settled by others. That morning, the one I replay every night, we were driving east at 6:15 in the morning. The sky was a cool slate, the sun sliding under a band of low cloud. We kept the van at 40 miles per hour to listen for trouble ahead. We passed an overturned cattle trailer on its side, ivy already threading the slats. Ahead, 2 long lines of semis had created a canyon of steel. We had used places like this before. Park between the shadows, back our rear doors toward the wall of one trailer, and leave only the driver's door facing the open lane so we could pull away fast. Rena tapped the map. There is a rest area at mile marker 197, she said. If the exit ramp is clear, we can try for water. Her voice was steady, practical, as if we were still choosing between a coffee stand or a bakery before a craft fair. We passed a green sign with scratched white letters and 3 arrows. The exit was not clear. Burned cars crowded the ramp. We continued. 2 miles later, the highway dipped under a long overpass where a smaller road crossed above us. The underside made a deep cave. We avoid caves. Sound lingers there. But the shoulder here widened, and a sight line ahead showed open pavement for at least a quarter mile. I was about to tell Rena we would push another 10 miles and then stop when I saw the flare. It burned with an orange tongue and a pulse of white sparks at the edge, lying right in the middle of the left lane. Next to it stood a child. A boy or a girl, I could not tell from that distance. Small, a yellow rain jacket, bare legs below the hem. One hand up over their brow against the sun. The other arm held something dark to their chest. We both saw the same thing at once, alone, on a highway that had not been safe for months, holding a flare-like lighthouse keepers in miniature. I downshifted with the small paddle on the steering column and let the van slow without tapping the brake. Brake lights are conversation starters you do not want. Rena lifted binoculars and fixed the child in the center. 9 or 10 years old, she said after a second. No visible injuries. The thing pressed against the chest looks like a small backpack. The face looks, not blank, watchful. Everything we had practiced stacked up in me like cards. Stop or do not stop. Who else is nearby that we cannot see? Does the flare's smoke drift in a way that tells you how long it has been lit? How does a child get to the middle of an interstate without a guardian? And if there is a guardian, where is that person right now? I eased the van to the right shoulder and rolled to a silent stop with the motor idling. My hands rested light on the wheel. I felt my heart find a fast rhythm against the seatbelt. We spoke without looking at each other. "If this is a trap," I said, "it is a careful one." "If this is not a trap," Rena said, "then it is a child alone on a highway." The child raised the flare high and took 3 steps toward us, as if measuring our intentions by how we sat. I put the van in park but left the engine running. I reached for the handheld radio we kept near the dash, a small device that could scan family radio channels. I thumbed through frequencies, listening for the cadence of whispers. Nothing but static. We had rehearsed a script for this moment, and rehearsals felt cruel until you needed them. Rena slid into the back, opened the small port we had cut into the sliding door above waist height, and called through it with the voice of a grade school teacher. Calm, warm, shaped to carry only as far as needed. "Hello there," she said. "What is your name?" The child lowered the flare and said, "Maya." The voice carried, small but clear. "I have been waiting here since the sun came up." "Are you hurt, Maya?" Rena asked. "No." A pause, then the words bundled together as if they had been memorized. "Please help me. They told me to stand where you could see me." They told me. Rena's eyes met mine. I kept my hands visible near the wheel and moved only my eyes as I scanned. Overpasses breed shadows. Shadows hold plans. I studied the spray-painted columns for fresh scuffs. I watched the grass ditches to either side, the angled shape of a guardrail, the darkness under a semi-trailer that might hold a person flat against gravel. I looked for reflections in the glass of the mile marker sign. You can see motion in reflections you cannot see in open air. Nothing obvious. "Who told you to stand there, Maya?" Rena asked, the same steady tone. "My aunt," Maya said. She shifted her weight and I saw the backpack better. It was a small school pack with a patch of a cartoon fox. "She is stuck in a car on the other road. She said the big road would be safer." The other road was the one above us, the overpass. My foot hovered over the brake pedal and then moved back. Brakes flash, engines hum. Both of those things draw what we do not want. I killed the engine, which took away our air conditioning and our easy exit. Choice never arrives in ideal packaging. We have a rule for breaking our own rules. If we open the door, we do it in a way that controls the first minute. Rena pulled on a bright orange safety vest, not because she needed visibility, but because it made her look like a worker. And workers are less interesting to people planning bad things. She clipped a radio to the vest, slotted a canister of pepper spray into the pocket, and strapped a fixed-blade utility knife to her belt. Her hair went under a cap. She added earplugs around her neck because sound can surprise you, and you never know when you will need to blunt it. "I will go," she said. "You cover from the rear port, no rifle unless you must. If you must, there is no warning. Fast, precise, then we leave." We had said these words to each other before sleeping, like a quiet prayer only we understood. I slid to the back and opened the small covered window we had cut in the rear door. It gave me a field of view down the lane and a slice of the space under the overpass. I set the binoculars beside me and took up the rifle, chamber empty, magazine loaded beside it. My hands moved without hurry. There is a difference between fear and readiness, and the body can learn that difference. Rena opened the slider a hand's width and stepped out. The door shut with the gentle click we had practiced 100 times. She raised an open palm toward Maya and stopped at the painted shoulder line. "I am Rena," she said. "I am here to help you. We have water and food, but listen to me. We do not move closer to the bridge until I know it is safe. Do you understand?" Maya nodded. She seemed more relieved to have an adult voice to follow than eager to run at us. That was real. Children who have been coached for a trap often rush with urgency. This child waited for instructions. "Tell me about your aunt," Rena said. "She is stuck in her car," Maya said. "Men block the wheels with a chain. She cannot get out because her leg hurts." Chain. The word landed like a small metal clink inside my head. I adjusted the rear port sightline and glassed to the underside of the overpass again. No movement. A crow walked along the concrete ledge above us, head tilting as if confused by the flare's smoke. Rena signaled with 2 fingers. "I am going to the flare." She moved slowly, heels down first to set each step without kicking pebbles. I took slow breaths and counted them silently. At step 5, the field under the overpass shifted. No, not a person. The light changed as a cloud edge moved. You learn to catalog these differences or you go mad. At the flare, Rena crouched, set it upright so it would burn out on the asphalt instead of rolling to the grass, and looked at the road surface. She was reading sign like a tracker. Scuffs, fresh shoe prints, the little arcs that show where someone pivoted quickly. Her hand moved, and I knew she had found something. A small candy wrapper folded into a triangle placed near the center line. She lifted her head and met my eyes even though she could not see my eyes through the dark. Our code for that, triangle, meant someone left a marker for someone else. Rena stood and spoke to Maya in that calm teacher voice again. "We want to help your aunt. Before we do that, we will make a quick plan so no one gets hurt. I need you to sit on the guardrail. Put your backpack on your lap and keep your hands on it. That helps me know you are safe." Maya did as told. She swung her legs like any child waiting for a bus. I felt something old and ordinary squeeze my chest. This could have been a normal morning. Rena came back 2 steps and turned so her body faced the open space under the bridge while her head stayed angled toward Maya. She did not announce what she had noticed. She gave me the signal to switch positions. I slid forward, placed the rifle and binoculars, returned to the driver's seat and whispered, "I'm going to creep ahead 5 car lengths and angle the van so the headlights catch anyone between the pillars." "Do it," she said softly. I started the engine with the key halfway turned so the starter made only a short sound. The van eased forward. I angled the nose left, then braked gently. The beams pushed a wedge of light under the overpass. Dust motes turned into a calm snowfall. For a heartbeat, nothing changed. Then a shape separated from the shadow at the base of a pillar, low to the ground. A person lying prone rolled into a crouch. Another shape mirrored it on the opposite side. Not infected, These bodies moved with the wary economy of people who have done this before. 2 under the bridge, I said. Left and right pillars. Rena's left hand lifted, palm toward them, a sign used at any traffic stop. Stay back, she raised her voice just enough. We see you, she said. We have a child here. If you move closer, we will leave. If you set down anything in your hands and step slowly into the light, we will talk. The person on the left stood and made a show of opening both hands. A metal object glinted, then settled to the concrete. The person on the right did not stand. Instead, from the far side of the overpass, somewhere out of our light, a third figure called, "We do not want trouble. The kid needs help." The voice was tired, strained, and not false. I kept my eyes on the spaces between objects, the places where motion begins. Behind the pillars, a length of chain lay across the asphalt like a stiff snake. On it was a padlock that had been snapped open, not with a key, but with force. The shackle was bent. If that was their chain, it had not been on anyone's wheels long. "Where's the ant?" Rena asked. A woman limped into the light from the far side. She leaned on a piece of 2x2 lumber planed smooth at one end, as if sanded by use. She had a scarf tied above her knee under a torn pant leg. Her eyes tracked between Rena and the van's lights. "I am her aunt," she said. "My name is Tessa." We were trying to get the small car off the ramp when a group came through yesterday afternoon. They took our keys, and when they saw we had a child, they said to wait here because someone like you would stop. We have food to trade. We are not asking for a ride. We need water and a splint for my knee. Then we will go back to the farm road. The 2 figures by the pillars stayed half-turned, not crowding, not stepping back. I watched their hands. Empty. One wore work gloves, the kind you buy in a bundle. The other had a strip of cloth tied around their wrist. It is strange what you notice when your mind is trying to decide if you are in danger. Rena nodded slowly, never lowering her guard. "We can give water," she said. "I can help wrap the knee. We will set the things in the open and back away. You will pick them up. No one comes toward the van." Tessa agreed. Maya looked at us with the huge relief of a child allowed to stop pretending she understood a game with adult stakes. Rena moved like a stagehand, precise and invisible. She carried 2 jugs and a narrow roll of elastic bandage to the flare's spot, placed them, and backed away. Tessa waited until Rena's heels touched the painted line, then limped forward, picked up the bandage, and knelt with difficulty. Her hands did not shake. She had done this before. We stood in that triangle of light and shadow, a tiny economy of trust. The 2 by the pillars whispered to each other in voices I could not catch. A wind came up from the west and touched the flare's smoke, so it bent low and slid along the pavement like fog. I did not like that wind. Noise travels differently when the air is moving like that. It happened the way accidents do, not with intent, but with the wrong elements in the same place at the same time. From far down the interstate, over the gentle rise, a distant engine note lifted. Someone else on the road. At the same instant, the crow above us flapped loud and took off, setting a new pattern of sound that carried under the bridge. The 2 by the pillars reacted. One flinched, the other turned a shoulder as if to look. That was all it took. From the grass ditch to our right, 3 forms rose in a straight, clumsy line and moved toward the flare. The infected do not often move in straight lines unless a sound anchors them. The flare hissed and sputtered and threw tiny sparks. The new engine noise climbed a note, and that was the hook. The 3 moved faster, hands loose, heads bobbing with the rhythm of feet not used to running. "Back," I said. "Rena, back to the van." She did not run. She moved with that careful urgency that lets you place your feet in exactly the right spots. "Maya," she said, voice still calm, "come to me now. Hold my hand. We are going to step back together." Tessa shouted once, a low warning to the two by the pillars. They melted deeper into the shadows, not toward us, but away, using the columns to slide across the underpass like they had practiced these moves for days. That told me they had been using this place as a shelter, and the flare was not part of a trap as much as it was a signal that got worse when noise added to it. The three infected closed within 20 yards. Their faces were sunburnt and dusty, eyes fixed on the soundscape more than on us. One wore a postal uniform shirt. One wore a torn sports jersey. The third had the look of a contractor, a tool belt hanging empty. My hands were on the rifle without thinking, but the math was wrong. One shot would bring more from farther than we could see. "Flash, left," Rena said. Our code for non-lethal disorientation. I reached into the console and pulled a small flashlight with a strobe function I had never used for anything but a test. I aimed it low at the asphalt between the three and Maya and hit the switch. The light pulsed in a way that tricks your balance. The three checked their steps at the same time. A small stutter, enough to change momentum. "Into the van," I said. The sliding door came back. Rena lifted Maya and slid her across the floor, then stepped in herself and pulled the door on its quiet track. I was already in the driver's seat. The two under the bridge were gone from my headlights. Tessa sat against a pillar breathing hard, bandage half wrapped, watching us with a look I still see when I close my eyes. It was not betrayal. It was the look of someone who knows there is no perfect choice. I put the van in gear and eased forward. Not a roar, not a squeal. The infected turned toward the new sound and followed in a shuffling run that could surprise you with its speed. We stayed just ahead, keeping them chasing rather than milling. The overpass edge came and went above us. The road opened to bright morning again. I pressed the accelerator only enough to make the three shrink in the mirror. When we were clear by 100 yards, I tapped the horn once to pull them farther from the bridge and the people who had not harmed us. Then I let the van drift silent on the downgrade until the infected fell away. We drove another mile and slid into the shadow between two semis as planned. I killed the engine and let the quiet gather. The camper smelled like coffee and a hint of diesel and the citrus soap we used to wash our hands. Maya sat cross-legged on the floor, both hands still on her backpack the way Rena had asked her to keep them. Her face had the flatness of someone whose body does not yet believe the danger has passed. Rena crouched and met Maya's eyes. "You did very well," she said. "Can I look in your bag? Only to make sure there is nothing in there that can hurt you or us." Maya nodded. Rena opened the zipper. Inside were two small water bottles, half full, a wrapped cheese sandwich in wax paper, a small cardboard box of crayons, and a notepad with a cardboard cover that had a fox sticker like the one on the backpack. Rena turned the pages. On one, a shaky map had been drawn. It showed a square labeled Farm, a line to a circle labeled Bridge, and an arrow that pointed to a square with a heart in it. The square with the heart was drawn with our van's color, white. "Who drew this?" Rena asked. "I did," Maya said. "My aunt said to draw so I would remember." Rena handed back the pad. "We are going to give you something to eat," she said. "Then we are going to talk about your aunt and your farm road. We will see what we can do that keeps everyone safe." I set a kettle to warm on the small hot plate and opened two tins, one of fish and one of peaches. Maya ate with small, careful bites. She did not ask questions right away. When she finished, her eyes softened and her shoulders lowered in a way that said the first layer of fear had peeled off. "Tell us about the farm," I said. "It is not our farm," she said. "It is a place with a red barn and a windmill. We were staying in the barn with other people. Then a group came. They took things and told us not to follow them. My aunt said to wait and then leave when it was quiet. We left at night. My aunt's knee hurt. She said the ramp would be faster. A car was across it. She tried to move it. It rolled a little and trapped her foot. We were there until you came." Rena and I exchanged a look that held a dozen ideas. We could return after drawing the infected away farther. We could circle to the smaller road above and come from the opposite side to avoid the underpass. We could do nothing and take the child farther east to a town we thought might still have a calm corner. "Do you want to go back to your aunt?" Rena asked. Maya nodded without hesitation. "Yes," she said. "She is good at making things better." There is a sentence that can break you in a world like this. It is when a child tells you who helps them sleep. In that moment, you can draw a clean line between right and wrong. The problem is that the world does not sit still for you to draw it. We planned as if planning could hold back chaos. I unfolded the atlas and traced a finger along the frontage road that paralleled the interstate, then connected to the overpass from the far side. "If we exit at mile marker 200 and take the county road north," I said, "we can cut back to the overpass from above. That would keep us out of the echo chamber under the bridge." "We do it with the van's engine off at the last bend," Rena said. "We roll in neutral, stop short, and make a quick assessment. If the aunt is there and safe, we get her to us. If the two who are under the bridge are there and aggressive, we back out with the van still off and coast away." Maya listened without fidgeting. When we finished, she asked the only question that mattered. "Can we go now?" We went. The van eased from between the semis and back onto the open lane. The sun had climbed, and the day had taken on that crisp look highways have when the air dries out after a cool night. We drove 2 exits and turned onto a county road with a number that sounded like a riddle. Pavement gave way to hard-packed gravel that crackled under our tires even when I tried to float them. At the last bend before the bridge, I turned the key to accessory and let the van roll, steering with both hands and watching for glints and shadows. We stopped 50 yards short. I set the parking brake without the click, using the slow lift that keeps the ratchet quiet. Rena slipped out with the same care as before. I watched through the windshield. The county road curved onto the bridge and then crossed over the interstate like a quiet thought. On our side, a compact car sat nose first against the guardrail, one wheel at a bad angle. A chain lay near it, the padlock open. Tessa leaned in the open rear door, her back to us, packing something into a backpack. Rena raised a hand. "Tessa," she called, just above a conversational tone, "it is us." Tessa turned. Her face was pale under the bandana. She lifted both hands, palms out, and then waved urgently. "You should not be here," she said. "They will come back when the sun is fully up." Maya pushed past me in the door before I could stop her, but she kept the good habit of moving low and fast. She reached Tessa and hugged her waist, careful of the wrapped knee. Tessa folded down to hold her and let out a sound humans make when they see a person they were not sure they would see again. "We came to get you," Rena said. "We can take you as far as the next farm road junction. After that, we keep moving east." Tessa shook her head. "We cannot run far," she said. "But we can get to the red barn by the windmill. The group who took our keys yesterday might still be watching. I do not want your van near that place. They will want it." We worked fast. Rena helped Tessa adjust the wrap while I checked the compact car's wheel. The tie rod had snapped. That car would not move without parts and time we did not have. Tessa loaded a small pack with what remained: a bag of rice, a jar of beans, a roll of cloth, a family photo tucked between two notebook covers. She looked at the car with a finality I understood. "Go," she said. "If we are not seen, we can walk the fence line behind the hedges. The barn is less than 2 miles." I looked down from the bridge. The interstate below shone empty. The place where we had stood by the flare was just a clean patch of asphalt now. No one waited by the pillars. The 3 infected we had drawn away were gone, or they had found some other sound to chase. We made a choice that was both kind and clumsy. We gave Tessa a small handheld radio and set it to a family channel. We told her we would listen for the next half hour while they made the first part of their walk. If they needed help, we would come back. If they did not call, we would assume they had made it, and we would leave the area before the hour turned. Rena and I walked them to the edge of the hedgerow where the fence dipped. Maya held the crayon box in one hand like it was a talisman. Tessa put her palm on my forearm for a second. "I know you have to go," she said. "I will not ask for more than you can safely give." We watched them slip into the green. We returned to the van. I started the engine. The sound bounced once off the bridge rail and then faded down the road. I set the radio on the dash and tuned my attention to every syllable it might carry. The first call came at 7:19 in the morning. "We are at the windbreak," Tessa said. "All quiet." The second at 7:30. "Crossing the drainage ditch, no movement." The third at 7:38. "We see the barn." Relief is a dangerous thing to let in too early, but we let a little in. The fourth message is the one that keeps me awake at night. It came at 7:41 in the morning. "They are here," Tessa said, voice low and tight. "At the barn. The same ones. We are going to back away. Do not come. Do not come." There was a scrape, a muffled exhale, and then silence. I put the van in gear without looking at Rena. She set a hand on my wrist and did not squeeze, only set it there as if measuring my pulse by touch. "We gave our word," she said. She told us not to come. "They have a child," I said, and the sentence sounded small in the big space of the van. Rena's eyes were on me, then on the road, then on the radio. The silence inside that little speaker pressed on us. "If we go," she said, "we could lose the van. If we lose the van, we lose the only shelter we know how to keep safe. We lose the ability to help the next person we meet. We might not be able to help them either." We drove to the end of the road and sat at the T-junction while the engine idled too loud in my own ears. My mind threw images. Tessa, limping with Maya's hand in hers, the red barns, big doors, the windmill's steady arms turning in air that does not care about our choices. I put the van in park. I turned off the ignition. I set my head against the wheel and counted breaths to 10. When I lifted my face, I had decided. "We are not going to the barn," I said, like the words were an anchor I could set into rock. "We are going to wait. If we hear a call for help, we will move in as far as the fence line near the hedges and no closer. If we do not hear a call, we will assume they made a new plan that does not include us. We will leave at 8. That is the line." Rena nodded once, not in agreement with my heart, but in agreement with the logic that kept us alive. We waited. The radio stayed silent. A hawk rode a thermal above the hedgerow, wings held level. At 7:59, I almost broke my own line. At 8 exactly, I started the engine and turned the van east. We did not speak for miles. The highway unspooled like a ribbon someone had dropped from a tall building. The van hummed. The tires hissed. The world kept being the world. At a rest area that had been turned into a ring of quiet cars, we pulled into the far corner behind a maintenance shed. Rena took the radio and set it on the table between us. It did not make a single sound for the next hour. Maya sat on the bench seat with the Fox notebook. She drew the red barn. She drew the windmill. Then she drew the square with the heart again, the van, and put the heart on it twice. She did not cry. She did not ask for the road back. Children know when adults have done all they can do, that is both mercy and its own kind of sorrow. We added new rules after that day, not because we wanted to be harder, but because we wanted our kindness to work instead of shining out like a flare that pulls danger. The rules were simple and exact. If we help in the open, in daylight, with lines of sight in all directions. If we leave cleanly and do not circle like fish near a dock. We do not return to the same spot the next day. We leave a small cache of water and food at a marked point on a map to be found by those who need it, but we do not wait near it. Maya traveled with us. We did not plan that, but the world does not always wait for consent to rearrange itself around you. She learned the van's routines. She learned to pull the window covers down and to wedge the broom handle into the sliding door track so it could not be forced from outside. She learned to whisper when the radio hissed and to keep the flashlight beam on her hands and feet, not on the windows, when we moved at night. We taught her the atlas. Mile markers became tiny achievements. She named the stretches between exits like stages in a board game. From the water tower to the long bridge, she would say, tapping the map. From the long bridge to the turn where the stone cow is. The stone cow was a concrete statue outside a dairy that had seen better days, but it pleased her to make it a landmark. The world needs names to make sense. We also gave her tasks that were not survival. She colored little foxes on the edges of our inventory sheets. She labeled the top of each day's page with the date and a small weather icon, a sun, a cloud, 3 diagonal lines for rain. It sounds small, but when days begin to blur, a small picture at the top of a page can hold you to the idea that time is made of unique hours. We found safe places that barely deserved the word. A way station with a cinder block building whose back door could be latched from inside with a bolt we found under a desk. A church parking lot shaded by pines where the wind always seemed to move in one direction, carrying our cooking smells toward emptiness instead of toward houses. A county maintenance yard with a water spigot that turned without screaming if you moved it a quarter inch at a time. Once, in a town shaped like a grid with all its traffic lights stuck on blinking red, we parked outside a library with brick in a warm color and pulled a stack of children's books from a return bin that had not been emptied in months. We left a note with a date and an apology and a promise to bring them back someday. I still have that note folded in the back of the atlas. It is good to make a promise even when you may not be able to keep it. It teaches your hands to remember how to be gentle with other people's things. We avoided danger by choosing boring options. When given the choice between a scenic route and a truck bypass, we took the bypass. When given the choice between a store with broken windows and a farm stand with a lock intact, we moved on without trying either. We added a second deadbolt to the camper's rear doors, bolted through with steel plates to distribute force. We practiced leaving our sleeping places in less than 1 minute, the 3 of us in a small, silent dance of shoes, jackets, and straps. We listened to the radio because hope sometimes fits through narrow channels. In early evenings when the battery was flush with solar, I would tune the shortwave and scan for voices. A station out of the plains described how to capture rainwater from roofs using gutters, buckets, and clean cloth. A voice from the mountains listed community locations where food was being traded for tools and work, and then never came back on that frequency again. Once, a person read aloud from a first aid manual, the section about splinting lower extremities. An exact list of steps in a calm tone like bedtime instructions. Rena closed her eyes while we listened to that one, and I knew she was picturing Tessa's knee and the neat, firm wrap she had made. days lengthened. The sun rose earlier and hung longer at the lip of the horizon in the evenings. Our routines bent with it. We drove at 5 in the morning instead of 5:30. We hit at 7 at night instead of 6. We planned where we would be during the hottest hour so we could crack the roof vent and not melt. We cut strips of reflective windshield shade to fit our side windows and held them up with magnets so no light escaped and no heat came in. We met other travelers sometimes. A man on a cargo bicycle with a trailer full of clean plastic jugs. He traded water for a pair of leather gloves and a roll of wire. A school bus converted into a rolling home by a family of 5, the children's chalk drawings covering the lower yellow panels. Suns, houses, trees, a square with a heart in it that made me swallow once before I could speak. We traded stories and then rolled away. We did not exchange names unless it felt necessary. Names are threads, and threads can be followed. Not all meetings were calm. Outside a city where the interstate split into elevated lanes, a group had set a narrow corridor using disabled cars. They waved people into it with friendly motions and then held them until they gave up fuel or food. We learned to read the shape of a trap. The same angle of cars repeated 4 times, the same gap between them, the same piece of wood propping a hood open as if cars break down in patterns. We turned around before they could show us their smiles. I still think of the decision at the overpass. I have measured it against the things we have done since, and I have weighed it against the weight Maya's head leaves on my shoulder when she falls asleep during a rare movie night on our small laptop. If we had charged the barn that morning, if we had driven the van to its doors and set the horn blaring to draw the infected away, if we had spent our reserve in one place, then what would we have had to give the next time? I do not hide behind logic. I know a child's world narrows to the one person who tucks them in. But I also know this. That morning, we did what we could inside a set of rules that have kept at least 3 people alive to make more choices on more mornings. There is a mile marker near the state line that always catches the evening light in a way that turns the white numbers bright. The day we crossed it with Maya seated between us, holding the Fox notebook and pointing out every wind turbine like it was an old friend, we passed a delivery truck with its back roll-up door half open. Inside, boxes had shifted and spilled. On the floor, among packaging, lay a small cardboard case of crayons with a fox on it. Rena laughed, a small, brief sound, and I felt the day lift. We did not stop. We left it for someone else who needed a bright color in their day. Tonight, I am recording this while the diesel heater ticks softly. Rena is using a metal awl to punch holes in leather for a journal someone might want someday. Maya is asleep with her head against the window cushion, the Fox notebook open on her lap to a page where she has drawn 3 squares: a barn, a small house with a chimney, and a rectangle on wheels with a heart on it. She has labeled the last one home. People think survival is a knife edge. Sometimes it is. More often, it is a slow accounting ledger of small acts: the water you shared and the water you did not, the door you opened and the one you kept shut, the mile you drove and the mile you saved for tomorrow. We still drive at dawn. We still hide before dark. We still avoid cities. We still sleep in the narrow hallway of a camper between racks of journals and a toolbox and a crate of canned beans. And we still make room for one more voice on the bench seat when that voice knows how to sit quiet and hold a map. I do not know how this story ends. I know only what we promise at the start of each day. We will move like a shadow between the long bodies of the trucks. We will keep the engine quiet when quiet is life. We will offer help in ways that do not light a signal fire. We will not be perfect. We will be here again tomorrow morning at 5 in the morning, warming a steel kettle on a small hot plate. The atlas open to a page where hand-drawn hearts have become landmarks that matter more than the names of towns. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support keeps these creepypastas coming. Until next time, stay alert, stay safe, and never ignore the feeling that something is watching.